everybody, and welcome to Healthy Living. I'm Chef AJ, and my guest tonight is Kathy Hester. Kathy is the author of the best-selling cookbooks, The Vegan Slow Cooker, The Great Vegan Bean Book, Vegan Slow Cooking for Two. I have two of these books, and I can tell you they're both wonderful. In her latest book, Outrageous Oatmeals, she shows you how to make exciting sweet and savory oats for every meal. Think outside of the oatmeal box with recipes for oat milk, mushroom oat congee, and oat dosas. Kathy's recipes are easy to follow and easily found ingredients. They're healthy and they fit in with many special diets, and she wants you to know how easy and fun cooking can be. And her website is www.healthyslowcooking.com. Please welcome Kathy Hester.
Thanks so much for having me and for everyone to be here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. This first time we're actually talking on the phone, and it's funny because we were Facebook friends for a long time, and I had so many friends I didn't even know. And then one day I posted a recipe on my website with a picture saying, "Oh my God, this is so delicious!" And it turned out to be a recipe from you and from your book, and it was from the Oatrageous Oatmeal book, and it was so brilliant because I remember looking. I had some steel cut oats, but just not that many. I think it was like a half a cup. I'm like, well, what am I going to do with these? I'm not going to cook a half a cup of steel cut oats. And I was looking for a recipe to use them in, and it was like in a chili, and it was fabulous. Where do you get your inspiration? Who would put oats in chili? I mean, who thinks of that? That's brilliant.
Well, thank you. I like to think of myself as kind of a mad scientist in the kitchen. And I do get a little obsessive, which is why I can write a whole book on oats. And so it's kind of once I get started, it's hard to stop in a way. You know, it's like, well, oats do really well in a risotto. Why wouldn't oats be okay in a chili?
And you make cream cheese out of oats. I mean, I mean, all your books are great. Don't get me wrong, but this Outrageous Oatmeal book, it's so unique. I mean, it's not like there's other books like this. You know what I'm saying? It's such a unique book that you have everything from savory to, truffles. And I mean, it's wonderful is what all I can say. It's a fun book.
Oh, well, thank you. Like one of the things that I'm super proud of in there too is my DIY oat cheese powder. Mm-hmm. So you can kind of have a not from a box mac and cheese because you can still get a nice quinoa pasta or a whole grain pasta. And this is actually a powder that you can make ahead of time that's mostly like nutritional yeast and oats. And what happens is the oats, it really helps make it thick. So when you add whatever non-dairy milk you want to, it makes this nice, thick, cheesy sauce. And you can just keep it right out there. So whenever you come home and you just really don't feel like making anything, you don't really have to do much.
It sounds amazing. And you even have dog biscuits, puppy biscuits. Is that your dog, by the way, in that photo?
That is my photographer's dog. So that's Kate Lewis's dog. If any of you follow me on Pinterest, though, I made some dog cookies recently, a different one, banana flax, and both of my dogs are in that photo.
Because I know you're a pet lover. I read you finally have a house big enough for all your dogs and cats. I mean, that's fantastic. Tell us, you live in North Carolina, right?
I do. I live in Durham, North Carolina.
So is that near Howard Jacobson? Do you know him? Isn't that where he lives?
You know what? We actually just met. I think it was this summer. We met through Gail Davis. Mm-hmm. Of all things, which is really funny. So he emailed me and we met for lunch. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah, he's the co-author of the book Whole with Dr. Colin Campbell. I'm going to have to interview him. Nice guy. So at least you have one other vegan where you live, huh?
Well, there's quite a few, and there's actually there's like a Triangle Vegan Association and some different things. So actually every year, I'm not a part of this, but I support it. In that they'll get a group of restaurants together to do a special, not necessarily whole vegan menu, but there will be one or two choices, and there's some rules that go along with it, and it'll be for a whole month. So these are usually restaurants that don't necessarily cater to vegans, and a lot of the restaurants actually kept those menus afterwards. This has been going on for a number of years. So it's much more vegan-friendly here than you would imagine.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Have you always lived there, or where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, which is about an hour and a half from here. And I've been in Durham probably 10 or 11 years now. I left Winston when I was probably about 21, and I went to St. Louis in New York, and I lived in New Orleans for 12 years before I moved here.
Oh, that sounds like fun, actually.
Yeah, it was kind of fun, and it was a good chance to kind of get exposed to some different spices, because I really like spices and Indian food, and so kind of getting some of those Creole, Cajun sort of flavors and spices around, because you can do so much more than what you think. You know, it doesn't have to be a meaty experience.
Well, how long have you been plant-based, Kathy?
I've been vegan probably, I think it's 6 years now. I've been meatless for 32 years.
Wow.
32 years. Yeah, it's been a long time. And I really didn't do that much dairy before then, but I am an ethical vegan.
Wonderful.
So that's something I don't really talk about, because I don't want people to feel like they have to do it for my reasons. I want people to do it for whatever their reasons.
Well, good for you, because I do know a few ethical vegans that have said, if you're not vegan for ethical reasons, don't bother. And the last time I checked with the cows and the pigs and the chicken, they didn't really care why we weren't eating them, you know.
Oh, exactly. Well, that's one of the reasons, actually, I didn't use the word vegan in my blog name, that it's healthy, slow cooking, so that everyone would feel really welcomed.
Sure.
And I find that a lot of people whose doctor maybe has said you can't have any more fat, or you're going to have some serious issues if you don't change your diet, I want them to feel as comfortable coming in and trying something new and knowing that they have this safe space.
Well, one of the things I really appreciate about your books is for extreme vegans like me that don't eat sugar, oil, salt, and that are gluten-free, your book, I can still enjoy your book. There's enough recipes that are delicious without them, or it can be modified, and you take that into account. And so I do appreciate that, by the way. So thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. And it's so important to me that everyone can kind of come and eat as much of the same things as they can, and of the same flavors.
Yeah.
So I never want to leave out people who are gluten-free or soy-free, fat-free.
That's so nice of you, and I'm all of those. And I just looked up your DIY oat cheese powder. I can have all this. This is brilliant. I mean, this is, and these are easy to find, easy to source ingredients. These aren't. I made that mistake in my book Unprocessed because I use a lot of sun-dried tomato powder. Little did I know that most people can't get it like I can. So, your book, it doesn't have, and they're beautifully photographed too. It's like you want to just eat the page. I love the look and the feel of this oat book. It's just, I mean, both the books, the bean book too, but like I say, the oat book, it's just such a unique concept. What, like, were you just making oatmeal one day and said, hey, I think I can write 200 recipes just using oats?
It's almost like that. So when I started my blog, and then I actually got my first book deal like months after I started my blog, like maybe 4 months. So I was kind of trying to keep some stuff on my blog while I was working on a book, and I would always turn to oatmeals, because I have like the whole series of Southern dessert oatmeals, like hummingbird cake oatmeal or banana pudding oatmeal. And so I ended up, I think I have about 50 different slow cooker oatmeals on my blog. And people were coming just for those, and they were saying, oh, I wish you had more oatmeal recipes. Oh, I wish you had an oat book. And so I took their comments and I put it in a proposal, and we made an oat book.
Yeah, I like the title, Oatrageous, but it's so clever. And who would have thought that steel cut oats and chili would taste like meat? That was brilliant. And you even make sausage out of them, sausage crumbles.
The sausage crumbles and pepperoni crumbles are also I love everything in it, but I guess you get more proud of the things that are just really bizarre that worked out.
I know. How do you? Okay, so Kathy, it took me forever to write one book with 109 recipes, and I see people like you and Robin Robertson who endorse both of your books. The 1,001. I mean, how do you? What's going on in that brain of yours that you can even think of this many recipes? I go to the same 7 meals every week. How do you guys do it?
I think some of it is that people ask me for certain things too, so that also helps. Or I think if I'm doing just a particular subject book like the bean and the oat, then you're kind of starting off in a different mind frame anyhow. If you're doing just a generic book, then it's a little bit different. But the first time I tried, I have a bean and grain chorizo in the bean book, and I have a sausage recipe in all my books because I I'm Southern and I love sausage flavors, but and there's so many different kinds you can do. But someone asked me for a nut-free, oil-free sausage that would fit in with that, and it took me a while. And while I was working on the bean book, I found a great chorizo that works really well. And that kind of turned into, I bet I could do sausage crumbles with the steel-cut oats. And with some of the things like that, it's interesting because you're kind of cooking the steel-cut oats first, probably 3/4 of the way done, not till they get super mushy, but you're cooking them enough that they're not going to hurt your tummy either. Yeah. And then you're mixing it with the spices and drying it out in the oven and breaking it up. So it really, my partner is not vegan, and so she said it reminded her of Totino's sausage crumbles.
Well, that's good. If a non-vegan likes your stuff, that's really good.
It's true. I always try not to be really insulted.
Well, that's interesting. So you're in as I joke, a mixed marriage. Is that difficult for you? Because I teach a lifestyle program, and one of the things we find is sometimes it is a little bit more difficult when people don't eat like you. How have you been able to navigate that?
Well, what's weird is I've never dated anyone who eats vegetarian. It's not on purpose. It's just I never have. Mm-hmm. Also, I'm kind of territorial in the kitchen. So it's my kitchen, and you can do some stuff. Cheryl doesn't really like to cook that much, so it doesn't really become an issue.
That's right. Well, if somebody has you as the person cooking, why would they even want to cook? You know what I mean?
Well, and sometimes she's my inspiration for some of the, I hate to say meat substitutes because I don't find that, sausage-flavored oat crumbles are a meat substitute per se, but she likes to have something a little heartier, something that has some familiar flavors and textures. And I'm hoping that translates, again, over to some people who have just been told that they can't have some of their favorite foods.
Right. Well, that's the thing, because, it's like you say, and that's why you're such a good recipe creator and chef, is because you understand textures, you understand flavors, and that's really what it is about. You don't have to just eat boiled carrots. It's this, and you said like living in New Orleans really helps you, make your spice repertoire even more, and that's really what it is. If you have a good use of spices, you can do almost anything.
Oh, absolutely. And the only ingredients that people have not been so happy with are some of my Indian spices. I try to give some alternatives, but like in Vegan Slow Cooking for Two, it's so expensive and it's hard to find vegan Indian food out. And so I wanted to have some really good Indian things. And so I want to tell everybody who's listening, one thing that you can do with any spice is then go into a bulk bin at Whole Foods or order a tiny amount off of your favorite spice place on the web. The one I use a lot is myspicesage.com because they have like an ounce version. So you can get a tiny amount. And so you don't have to spend $30 to try black cardamom.
Right. That's thank you. That we love tips like that. That's an excellent tip, just for people to save money before they want to commit to getting a spice that they may never like or use again.
Oh, absolutely. And when you're there getting something at Whole Foods, always try to open one spice that you haven't used before and just take a whiff.
How long do you think, what's your duration for spices? I read that after 6 months, throw them away. What do you think?
Well, I think that can be true with herbs. I find, and I don't know why this is, if I've grown an herb and I've dried it and put it up, it seems to be finished after the winter. But some of the herbs that I buy fresh, like at Whole Foods, well, not fresh, but not made by me, dry, I find that they seem to stay longer. So I don't know if they are, maybe when they're put in something, the air is pulled out differently. Spices, and my friend Kalpana, who's actually given me some great Indian food tips, she says that spices are good pretty much forever, as long as you heat them or toast the spices, because that's what brings out the oil to begin with.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that would be like cardamom, mustard seeds, cumin seeds, anything that's harder that wouldn't be a leaf.
Now, when you say you dry your own spices, are you using a food dehydrator, or how are you doing this?
Sometimes I use a food dehydrator, and sometimes I just hang them up.
Interesting. Okay.
And that could be why it's not as strong too.
I see. Do you have a favorite spice? And like if you were on a desert island, because I'll tell you, mine is smoked paprika. I go crazy for smoked paprika.
I love smoked paprika. I'd have to say cardamom, and I like black cardamom and regular. And so most people haven't used black cardamom, but it's a smoked cardamom.
I love smoked spices. They're so good. Have you ever been to, I don't know if you have this in North Carolina, we have it in California, but have you ever been to a spice shop like Penzeys or Savory Spice?
Oh, absolutely. I've done some demos at our Savory Spice Shop in Raleigh. The owners are just
fun? Isn't it fun that you can smell everything, and you're not really supposed to taste it, but I do anyway, and I love it. And it's Savory Spice is one of the few places you can still get, tomato powder, which is great to know, for at least for the recipes in my book. So when did you start? So your book came out of your blog. So how long have you been a best-selling cookbook author?
I think it came out, is it 4 years ago? It was the year of the first Feed a Vegan. Mm-hmm. I'm horrible with years.
That's okay.
But yeah, so because I remember I went to Vita Vegan, and then my book wasn't coming out for another month.
And Vita Vegan, just in case our listeners aren't familiar, tell us what it is.
Sorry. It's a vegan blogger conference that happens every other year. And so there was a year in Portland. It's going to be in Austin coming up in, I think it's May.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So I'm going to be there. So if any of you guys are going to be there, let me know or say hi.
So what was your career before this? Because
I've had kind of a winding path. So my first thing is I went to school to be a classical musician.
What do you play?
And then I played French horn, and that's what brought me to New Orleans. So I played in the orchestra there for 2 years.
Wow.
And then I kind of stopped and kind of reassessed and started doing web development, which was out of the blue because I actually, when they went to computers from card catalogs, I'm dating myself a lot now, I was like, no, thank you. I'll just go through the stacks. I know the Dewey Decimal System. Mm-hmm. So it's ironic that I'm the one who does all the computer stuff and does a lot of research. And I kind of bring that same thing to cooking. It's like, oh, I remember not knowing how to do that. Here, let's make it easy.
Yeah, I love that. But I love books that really are for everybody, and that you don't have to have, and like even just this one in the bean book, it's something that I made. It was just appealed to me because I love the photos. It was a white bean basil cheesy spread, and I had all the ingredients: cooked white beans. I had them in a can, nutritional yeast, lemon juice, lemon zest, granulated garlic or garlic, salt and pepper to taste, and fresh basil. And it was so simple, so easy to find ingredients, and yet it was absolutely delicious.
And I think people often mistake food that has a complex flavor as something that's complex to make.
And that's not true.
Mm-mm. And a little bit of like lemon juice or apple cider vinegar goes a long way. I think it's I make a faux goat cheese. I think it uses almonds though, and I think that
I have it right here, almonds and beans, and yeah, it looks fantastic. Nutritional yeast, apple cider vinegar. Lemon.
And that's one of my favorites because the apple cider vinegar gives it that tartness that I remember goat cheese having. And obviously it doesn't taste exactly like goat cheese. But
now you have so many books. It's amazing that you still remember, your recipes. I interviewed Lindsay Nixon once, another best-selling author, and she too, she didn't set out to be a world-famous blogger and best-selling author. She started out as a lawyer, and when you ask her what her favorite recipes are, she says, well, that's like me saying who's my favorite kid. But I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you have a favorite recipe of yours?
It changes often, and so right now I'm kind of stuck on one that I had in the blog. So I made another cheesy sauce, but I made it with vegetables. So it's like cauliflower, carrot, and turnip based.
That sounds amazing.
And it's optional. I did put I think it was a quarter or a third a cup of cashews just to kind of thicken it up, but you could skip that as well.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it worked out really good. It's real thick and rich. So I made a big batch and ate it for a whole week.
Wow. Your website is healthyslowcooking.com, but is every recipe slow cooked?
No, it is not. Every recipe is vegan. Mm-hmm. And when I started the blog, I wasn't looking long term. what I wanted to do is I had been meaning to write a vegan slow cooker book, and I didn't do it. So I said I'll start a blog, and that way my friends can make me feel guilty if I don't write these recipes. And what happened is a couple of months after that, someone had been actively trying to find an author who knew how to make vegan slow cooker dishes. And that's how the first cookbook started. And so it was kind of a whirlwind. And then obviously I always have some slow cook variations in all of my cookbooks just because I really do love slow cookers. But I don't think that's necessarily sustainable for the long haul since this is like year 5.
You have 5 slow cookers?
Oh, I probably still have at least 10 right now.
Wow. Okay, so I don't feel so bad for having 5 pressure cookers. Do you ever use a pressure cooker?
In December, I got my first Instant Pot.
Yay! That means you're going to write a pressure cooker book. Yay!
It might. I just did a reader survey on my blog, and I was kind of trying to delicately see if people would be open to that, and I'm going to be trying a couple of Instant Pot recipes on the blog.
Yay, okay, that's going to be good. Because, see, I do have a slow cooker, and I like it, but when I get home from work, it's too late to put something up, so that's what I love about the pressure cooker.
And it's very interesting because they're both convenient in different ways. So it's kind of convenient for me, when I was working outside the home, it's very convenient for me to put things together in the morning. I would do the prep at night, put it in the fridge, and just dump everything in the slow cooker and go to work and come back, and everything's done for me.
No, I love it. I love it. And the thing is a slow cooker, you can get them for less than $20 at Walmart. Pressure cooker's a little bit more, but I think they're both great to have,
I would definitely agree, and I wasn't sure if I was going to really love the Instant Pot as much as I do, and I really do like it. It cleans up really well.
Yep.
I was experimenting with making, because I make oatmeal in a 1.5 to 2 quart slow cooker, because I make it kind of 2 big portions. And I was nervous that I wouldn't be able to do that in the 6 quart pressure cooker, but me being me, I was going to try it and figured I could soak it if I have to, and it worked fine. So I was able to still cut down Jill's recipe in half, and it still worked perfect in the Instant Pot.
Perfect. Yeah, I think I use mine every day. I travel with it, and I'm going on the vegan cruise tomorrow. That's the one place I'm not traveling with it because I don't think the plugs necessarily work internationally. But I love it, and I resisted getting a pressure cooker for so long. I thought they were scary and dangerous, but they're not.
I feel like I'm still kind of cheating because I'm using the electric one, but the electric one doesn't seem scary at all.
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. It's very, very, very safe. And by the way, if anybody's listening and doesn't have an Instant Pot yet, if you go to www.instantpot.com, use my name AJ, get $50 off. So what could be better than that? So your first book was the slow cooker book, right?
Yes.
Okay. So and then came the bean book.
Then came the bean book, and the bean book was one that they asked me to write. Okay. The vegan slow cooking for 2 was something I had really, really wanted to write.
And so when you say slow cooking for 2, that means it's not going to be a lot of leftovers.
Exactly, and it's slow cooking for a 1.5 to 2 quart slow cooker. And while a lot of people do have families or maybe feeding 4 to 6 people, there are a lot of different times in your life that you really are probably only feeding 1 to 2 people. Maybe you're 16 and you're going vegan and your family isn't. Maybe you're in college, or maybe you have an empty nest now. And so I just really felt like that was a little bit of an underserved market.
I think it's great. And so what you're saying, though, is when you're slow cooking for a smaller amount, you do need a smaller slow cooker. So you don't advise making a recipe for 1 or 2 in the standard large one that we have.
There's some workarounds that some people have had success with and other people have not. So some people have actually put things in like a 2 quart Pyrex bowl and put it in a larger slow cooker in a water bath. And some people swear by it.
Okay.
And so you'd have to try it, and when you try it the first time, know that it may or may not work. Because I've also had some people who have had it not work with oatmeal, and some people who use it every single day.
Do you have a favorite brand of slow cooker? Like my favorite pressure cooker is obviously Instant Pot, but for a slow cooker, do you have a favorite brand?
The ones that I'm really kind of liking right now, I love the Cuisinart 3.5 quart. It's more expensive and it has lots of bells and whistles that you may not need. One of the things that I like about it, instead of just having warm, low, and high, it has a simmer.
Interesting.
And so if you've had a slow cooker that was a little bit older, maybe a relative's, and you get a new slow cooker, you're going to say, oh, my God, this slow cooker boils everything because the temperatures were raised because of meat sanitation issues and some different things. So they actually were required to up the temperatures, which doesn't really do anything for us except mean we might have to add a little extra liquid to some recipes that we want to have cook every day. So that simmer is kind of like a sweet spot. Now, and saying that, you don't have to have that. I mean, you can still just get like a $10 or $15 slow cooker wherever. And if it just runs a little hot, what you'll find is I always try to make a soup or a stew to begin with, because if it does run hot, you're probably not going to burn it. Good. You know, it's pretty hard to burn a soup.
No, that's true.
And if it's that hot, you need to take it back.
That's funny. So if you have 10 slow cookers, you must have a big kitchen, because I can't imagine in my little apartment where I would put 10 slow cookers.
They're downstairs and they're in the pantry. When I did that, we were actually in a 1,100 square foot house, and they all stayed on the sun porch.
Oh, okay. That's funny.
Now they get to at least be inside the house. But because slow cookers are so different, I really felt the need to try and cook in as many as I can, and then make sure that when my testers were testing the recipes, that they let me know which slow cooker they cooked it in, you know, and so I could gather all that information. And I found a Canadian slow cooker, they have an auto, and auto cooks it on high for 2 hours and then takes it down to low.
If somebody listening would want to be one of your future recipe testers, could they contact you to request that?
Absolutely, because I should be starting to test for a new book in the next couple of months. So I would love to find some new people.
And what's the best way for them to contact you, Kathy?
They can either contact me through my website. There's a contact form, or just directly at my email, which is kathyhester@gmail.com.
That's so easy because it's your name and everything's spelled the way you would think. So I love it. I love it. That's very cool. So do you eat all your recipes, or do you ever eat other things other than, like, do you just cook from your book every day, or do you just like, you know, I mean, or you just eat regular people food?
I eat regular people food too. Actually, I've been kind of on a kick. I got some of the Kite Hill cream cheese.
Yeah. Sure.
And I'm kind of in love with it, so I've been having that and a bagel, like half a bagel every morning, which is not my normal.
Okay, all right, look, it's great cheese, and I get it, but you have great cheese recipes in your book. Why wouldn't you make it?
You know, I probably will next time, but now that I've tasted this one, it gives me another idea.
Okay, good. That's good. Well, no, you do have to taste things, I'm sure. So
and I like to support as much as I can, too, the people that are really trying, because that's a really easy way for people to transition sometimes. Absolutely. Is to have some store-bought.
I think what they've done in Miyoko Shinner with her new line of cheese, and we're going to be interviewing her in June, I think that was the biggest missing, because so many people are vegetarian but not vegan and say, I would only be vegan, but I can't give up cheese. And then the fact that these companies are making cheese that looks like cheese, tastes like cheese, you know, I think it's fantastic. And they're becoming more and more easy to find everywhere you go, you know.
And I think sometimes it's just about a treat or being lazy, honestly. You know, sometimes if you're at the end of the book and you're cooking, you know, 6 recipes a day, at some point you're like, I just want, you know, a piece of bread, or I just want...
I remember when I was a pastry chef for 4 years, a vegan pastry chef, and I would come home from work after tasting stuff all day, and I'm like, I would literally put like a piece of kelp or dulse in my mouth, just anything that wasn't sweet, you know, anything that wasn't dessert would be just appreciated at that point, you know.
It's true, and I think sometimes it's good because you'll get a little tired of something, but that just makes you kind of look back and do something a little bit different, you know, and have something cooler that comes up in the future.
You know what's really cool about, I keep going back to your oat book. I'm sorry. I mean, love all your books, but it's just so unique that not only do you have all these amazing different savory and sweet recipes and do it yourself recipes, but in addition to dog biscuits, you have like scrubs and bath soaks. I mean, what do you like? Just, you're so creative. It's just, I'm so jealous. How do you think of these things? What do you just think all day about unique ways to use common ingredients?
I did say obsessive, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So there's a little bit of that. But when I was in grad school, I actually made bath salts and sold them. And so as I was doing this, the bath soak was really easy to do, and I ran out of my scrub that I normally used, and I just kind of glanced at it, and I'm like, I don't need to pay $20 for this. I have everything in the kitchen.
You're resourceful, in other words, yeah. So okay, so there's different kinds of oats, but would you say that most of the time you prefer to use the steel cut for most of the recipes, or
steel cut oats are used in a whole lot of the recipes because there was a Dutch publisher actually that just bought the rights. They don't have steel cut oats there, I don't think. So we were trying to find some workarounds. Yeah. But I do use a lot of steel cut oats, and oat groats they're just whole groats.
Yeah, because you know, Kathy, if you wouldn't mind, I know this, but our listeners may not, because I get this asked. Will you talk about the difference between the oat groats, the steel cut, the rolled oats, the instant oats, because they're all very different?
Oh, absolutely. So if you started in the beginning, you'd be looking at oat groats. And oat groats is a whole oat that just has the husk removed. The husk is inedible.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. See?
Yeah, and so steel cut oats seriously are oat groats that are cut into 2 to 3 pieces with a piece of steel.
Okay.
Stone ground oats, we don't see quite as much, but we're seeing them more. They're usually called Scottish oats or quick cooking steel cut oats.
I have seen them actually, yep.
Because it's kind of a little bit of a misnomer because they are actually stone ground. You know, we're used to seeing stone ground flour. So it's between two stones, and if you look at it, there's a little bit of it's powdery, a little bit of it looks like steel cut oats, and there's some kind of in between the two. And so what you get is a variety of different mouthfeels. So if you just cooked a normal morning bowl of that, it would be as if maybe you used half rolled oats and half steel cut oats.
Interesting. Well, a lot of people don't know that the oat groat, it looks a lot like rice, doesn't it, when you see it at the store?
It does, and it's very similar to me to wheat berries in that they're really good, and I like to use them in the slow cooker, but you have to plan ahead if you're not slow cooking them because they do take quite a long time to cook. So you either need to soak them or be prepared to wait around while they cook.
Absolutely. Or maybe even in the pressure cooker. Who knows, you know?
That's true too. You know, I have not actually made them in the pressure cooker yet, so that could cut down the time enough.
Exactly. So, you know, it's great that, because I have to be gluten-free by necessity, and it's great that you do so many recipes that are, but what's the story with oats? Because people get confused, because oats are inherently gluten-free, are they not?
They are. So if oats were by themselves in a field and magically appeared in a bag, they would probably be gluten-free magically. But what happens is from the field to the trucks to the processing plants to the bag, they can come in contact with things that do have gluten, and therefore they can become contaminated.
Right.
I'm saying that in quotes. It's contaminated for people who can't have gluten.
Exactly.
And like Bob's Red Mill, I love them because they have a whole separate gluten-free facility.
Good to know.
They process all their gluten-free stuff in a different place. So I feel really safe about serving those things to my friends who are gluten-free.
And you know what I love about Bob's Red Mill too is that I make a lot of my own granola for customers and for family members. I don't eat it because I don't eat really dates and nuts anymore. It's based on Miyoko Shinner's recipe. But they have not only a gluten-free oat Bob Red Mill, but they have an extra thick cut that I think is just delicious.
Yeah, I agree with you too. Yeah, that is a really nice one. It cooks down into a really nice bowl of morning oats.
Yeah,
too.
It's just so, like, I guess toothsome is the word, and that's what I really like about it. I think it's even, you know, I'll just do muesli. Like, I'll just take, you know, these Bob Red Mill gluten-free thick cut oats, put a little almond milk unsweetened and a little cinnamon and grate an apple, and it's delicious.
That sounds good.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the oat book, and I haven't tried this, but I love that you have a dessert that's it's pumpkin is what you're using, pumpkin puree. Your granola bars, they look amazing with just some dried fruit. That's you a lot of your recipes, it's just the way I eat, so I really really appreciate that. The rare person that couldn't have oats, I mean, I've only met two in my whole life that like maybe had a true intolerance because it's not one of those high allergen food. Is there a substitute for oats?
But in general, I'm sure you could find. See, I'm trying to think in particular. So, like, if you wanted to make something like the sausage pizza crumbles, you could use a variety of grains, like maybe millet, amaranth, and quinoa.
I actually like millet. I think millet is an underused grain, but I really like it.
I like it, and I have a multi-grain chili that has like 3 or 4 different beans, and it's got millet and amaranth and bulgur in it. It's not natural gluten-free, but you could switch that out for quinoa. And I really love that hardiness that millet brings to the table.
Yeah, I do. I like it. I make some desserts with it. It's a fun little grain, and I love that you have it's so easy if people understood to make their own milk. They don't need to necessarily buy I mean, it's great to have it for convenience, but to just, your oat milk recipe, it's oats and water. Hello,
It's the cheapest plant-based milk that you can make that I know of, because rolled oats you can get really inexpensive, and you don't have to soak it overnight. So if you started making something, you're like, oh no, I'm out of milk now.
Yeah.
10 minutes later, you can have a whole new quart of unsweetened oat milk.
And you don't have to have the stabilizers, the preservatives, any of the added salt or sugar or oil. So it's great. And you use what I was looking at it. Do you use a paint straining bag, or that's what I use?
I use a fine mesh strainer, and I find with oat milk in particular, when I had testers who really squeezed the nut bag, some of the slime comes with it.
Yep.
And if it doesn't bother you, that's okay, because oat milk is a little more thick because it does have, some fat. It's a very tiny amount of fat, but compared to some of the other nut milks and things. So I like the fine mesh strainer. I find works really well for me, and then I don't have to get all messy.
Are these available everywhere, fine mesh strainer?
Yeah, I just use a KitchenAid fine mesh strainer that I think I got at like Target.
Terrific. Oh, good. You have a Target where you live. That's always good.
Bonus.
So the book that is going to be released soon, what's it called? When does it come out?
It's called the Easy Vegan Cookbook, and it comes out in September this fall.
And what is the theme of that? Obviously, it's vegan. Obviously, it's easy. But what kind of recipes can we look forward to?
Sure. I tried. Well, there's a couple of tofu or tempeh recipes. In general, I tried to keep it real vegetable based as well. So I did another kind of mince, but I used cauliflower, and so it's basically a cauliflower taco mince. Or you can use it with Italian spices on pizza. And I put in a carrot dog. I don't know if you've ever had those.
And I think it was Ann Esselstyn who we had on the show. Yeah, I think they're adorable. They're very cool.
Yeah, and it's so interesting what, like some flavor combinations. You certainly could leave out the sesame oil if that doesn't fit in with your diet. But it's like a little bit of sesame oil and apple cider vinegar kind of makes that taste that hot dog. I remember hot dogs used to have, but I mean, obviously that's a bazillion years ago. But it's very interesting. You would think from the marinade it would just taste like sour carrots, but it doesn't. And I wanted to make sure to try and have a ricotta for my oil-free people, so I actually did a cauliflower ricotta.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
And so it's obviously a little lighter and not as full. So if you're going to use it on something big, you might want to double the amount that you would versus like an almond ricotta that just kind of keeps its bulk a little bit easier. But I thought it worked out really well. And I always have gluten-free testers and oil-free testers so that everybody can kind of give me some hints too.
Well, I would be happy. I'm gluten-free, oil-free, and soy-free, so I would be happy to be a tester for you because that would be an honor and a privilege. And I've done that for a few chefs, and it's quite fun, as a matter of fact. So,
well, anytime. You are more than welcome.
What I like about you is you just, we're meeting you just seem like a really nice person. And I love that you say, and I'm making this in case somebody has this dietary restriction, because I got to tell you, not all chefs are like that, or cookbook authors. And I've, talked to other people and said, well, I don't know. And they'll be like, well, just get over it, and well, no, I'm not going to get over it. Make me some recipes that I can eat. And you're doing that. So that's really wonderful.
Right. Well, you know what? It doesn't help anyone to do that. And I've been told kind of the same thing, like when we were talking about what kind of vegan you are or how you self-identify. When I was vegetarian, I had someone who came up and said, he was like, I'm a vegetarian. I'm like, oh, I'm a vegetarian too. I can help you with this menu. I was waiting tables. And he's like, well, are you vegetarian for the right reason?
Oh, my gosh.
And I was like, really?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, for me, I sure am. and the thing is it's so arrogant to assume that you know what's going on in somebody else's life. If someone can't have salt for some sort of medical reason, it doesn't mean that they're just trying to be nasty to you and making your soup taste bad.
Right. I love that about you. I wish more people, especially chefs, could be like you, because they don't want to deal with people that like me that they perceive as difficult and extreme. Because you're right, they don't know the reason. You don't ever know the reason unless you ask the person,
Right, and I think that's the thing. I think if people came out and talked to the person and just kind of said, what stuff do you like? What do you miss? And whenever I'm talking to a group of people, that's the one thing I want to know, because whatever people are missing is what I want to try to make for them.
So that's great. So all you guys listening, let's start emailing Kathy with what we miss, like Napoleons and things like that. but it's so great though, because I think a lot of these people that don't want to work with our restrictions, it's because they're not as talented and creative as you. Because for someone like you, it's not really as much of a problem. You know what I'm saying? But for some of these people, they just can't figure out how to make the food taste good with less salt or no gluten or no soy, no oil. So it's just a testament to your skill that you're able, you have the kindness to do it, but also you have the ability. I think a lot of people don't.
Well, I think this has to do with anything that you're going to do well. And coming from a multi-career life, I really believe that you can't succeed at anything unless you're really willing to fail.
Mm.
And so, because you're not going to give it your all if you think you might fall and you're not willing to do that. So sometimes I make some stuff that I think just can't possibly work. Like I really didn't think that cheese powder was going to work, and it was in my head from the beginning, and I waited like 3 months because I'm like, this is going to make such a mess. It's never going to work. And the first time it came out pretty good. I worked on the flavors a few more times. But, I always kind of say, I try it, and so I can mess it up, and then you don't have to.
Yeah, that's why we pay you, yeah. So were there any recipes that were just so bad that even your pets wouldn't eat them, that just never made it to print?
Yes, there was some eggplant recipe I was trying to make for the vegan slow cooker that was the only one that I threw out. I can't remember what it was right now. From doing this vegan slow cooker cookbook, I had a super tight deadline, and at that point I didn't have a lot of recipes developed. So I really was using 5 slow cookers at a time because I had a full-time job as well.
Wow.
And so my idea is I would just make one, then make the other, and then kind of come back around. And unfortunately, one day I made something with Indian food, Mexican food, and Chinese food at the same time in the same room.
Wow.
And it was disgusting.
Oh, my goodness.
My whole house smelled so horrible that I put everything in the fridge, and then when it was done and we went out to eat, and then over the week I tasted it fresh without all those smells in the air, and everything was fine. It's just don't do it. Don't do it at home.
Do you think that the slow cooker, or maybe even the process cooker, well, the Instant Pot, it's stainless steel. A lot of the slow cookers, they're made of, I don't know what that material is. It's black. But do you think it retains the smells and the flavors of certain strong spices?
I don't find that as much as I do like in the Instant Pot, the little ring around it.
Sure.
Since I read about it, because it's kind of funny because there's some really great Facebook Instant Pot vegan groups.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ran into one of those, and it's been very, very useful for me. And they were talking about that, so I've made sure as soon as I take the lid off, I soap it down and wash it off immediately. And so I haven't had anything stick too bad.
Good. And you can always get extra rings if it's really a concern, if you really think that the ring is retaining, weird smells or things like that,
And that's smart to do too. I just tend to cook, again, I'll have some strong Indian dish, and then I want apple pie oatmeal.
Yeah. Is there a recipe that's been in your head for a while that just so far you haven't been able to conquer and figure out yet?
I'm sure there is.
Okay, well, if you think of it, I'm just curious because, you have me intrigued because you had such an interesting life before you became a best-selling cookbook author. Is your French horn nearby? Do you think before we leave you could just maybe play like something by John Philip Sousa for us? We've never had a guest before that was a famous French horn player that played in an orchestra. That's just really cool.
Oh, well, thank you. No, it is stored somewhere deep, deep away.
Your kid, this is people are gonna think I'm crazy, but by any chance are you a Taurus?
I sure am.
Well, just because music and food, that Tauruses love music and they love food, and you did one, you're doing the other one now, so that would make perfect sense, I was at the doctor last week and I flipped him out because I guessed his sign, and he was like, because he definitely didn't believe in astrology, and he's like, how did you know? And he was accusing all the nurses of telling me his birthday, and then and actually he was on the show recently too. We interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, but I segue. So the Easy Vegan Recipes, that's an easy title. That comes out, you said, in September.
Yes.
And all your books are available on, I'd imagine, Amazon is a great place to get them.
They are indeed. And you can, if you go to my site, there'll be on the navigation bar. I'm sorry, it's late for me, so I apologize for the brain meltdowns.
And I'm sorry. It's our time, and it just, I'm sorry. It is 3 hours. So.
It's no problem at all. And so on the navigation bar, there's something that says books, and if you go there, it'll have links to buy the books, but it also has a couple of recipes that are in the books that are on the blog, so you can try something before you buy it.
One of the great recipes, I haven't tried it, but I just know, and usually, this is the other thing, when an author such as yourself has a couple of good recipes, you can bet that most of them are going to be pretty darn good too. But you have a gluten-free waffle recipe, and I believe that was also on your blog. I believe that's where I saw it a long time ago.
It is on my blog, and the only thing I would tell people, because I think it's delicious, the batter is really thick, so it's a little bit different kind of batter, but it ends up turning out really nice and crunchy.
Yeah, that looks absolutely beautiful, and that's a great way. If people don't necessarily want to buy your book right now, even though I think they should, at least the oat book, it's so unique. Go to your blog and try a few recipes, healthyslowcooking.com, and then they'll see how great they are. So the one you're working on now that you might need some testers for, what's in the works for you?
Well, I can't say exactly because it hasn't been signed yet.
All right. Okay. All right.
But it will be healthy, and it will be easy and inexpensive.
Well, I like it, and of course it'll be vegan, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. They'll always be vegan, so you don't have to worry about that.
Great. Okay, we're not going to have you switching teams on us like some of these other bloggers that are now paleo, right? We because you said you're vegan for ethical reasons, and I think when somebody has that, it's much harder to stop.
And it's true. And when I've talked to just general people who are wanting to eat more vegan, even if they're not wanting to be, I usually tell people, figure out why it's important for you to do it. If it's important to you because you don't want to take heart medicine, then that's a really easy way to stay the course. Or if it's because you don't want to do something that would affect animals, that's a real easy way to stay the course too.
And so, I think it's good. There's no bad reason to eat more plants, right? Really,
No, and that's what's kind of cool right now. Even with I kind of say the paleo backlash, is that everybody else, even the paleo people, are trying to eat more vegetables.
Yeah, that's the one good thing about their diet. And then, of course, not eating so much processed food as well, So that's good. So, a lot of times when I have people on Healthy Living, I ask them, who inspired them in their lives, and we get some really interesting answers. And I'm just wondering who inspired you in your life.
Well, cooking-wise, I have to say Molly Katzen.
Oh, yes, she's great. She has some great books.
The Moosewood Cookbook is how I learned how to cook.
That. And, I bet you there's people listening now, younger people, that in a few years are going to say, the Oatrageous Oatmeal Cookbook is how I'm serious, because it's an easy enough book for a beginner, and you never know who you're inspiring with this. So that's wonderful.
Oh, I would love that, because it's funny, if I hear Molly Katzen is somewhere, I get like this whole like little rock star thing, because I'm like, oh my God, I can never talk to her.
Oh, well, she's on Facebook. I think I was friends with her when I was on Facebook. So, I bet you could talk to her.
I could. I probably would totally embarrass myself, because when being a little obsessive or very excited about things, I seriously would read that book cover to cover like several times before I even tried to do one thing. And it was just fascinating.
That's very cool. How many hours? So this is obviously your job now. You're not playing the French horn anymore. And so how many hours a day do you spend writing and testing recipes?
Probably writing and testing recipes would probably be 6 hours a day.
So it's a full-time job.
It is, and then the other part of running a blog is probably another 4 to 5 hours a day sometimes.
Well, then you're working 11 hours a day, aren't you? That's too much.
I'm working on that. I'm trying to figure out this work-life balance. I'm almost 50, so I'm thinking 50 is going to be the magic year.
Wow.
But I'm going to get this down.
Now, one of the things I notice, and maybe you are doing classes and presentations, but I'm not aware of it, because I see very talented, prolific authors that are creating lots of recipes like you and Robin Robertson. Do you guys get out much, teach, lecture, or do you even have time to do classes?
I haven't been doing much of that at all lately. But I would like to do more. I was at the Triangle Veg Fest. It was the very first one. I was there and demoed a tempeh recipe from Oatrageous. And I love meeting people and answering people's questions and being able to interact. And every time I get to do that, it's very exciting. So I would like to teach more classes.
It's called the Triangle Veg Fest. Where was that?
It was I'm pretty sure it was in Durham.
Oh, wow. So you had it out there. Well, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really awesome, and actually it was packed. I was really surprised, and the only other Veg Fest that I've been to so far was in Boston, and I spoke at that one a couple of years ago.
That's fantastic.
It was so much fun because I love just having a whole bunch of people and just having them ask me all kinds of wacky questions, because it gets my brain going.
Yeah, well, you have Whole Foods in your town, right?
Yes.
So you could probably be teaching there if you wanted to, I would imagine.
I probably need to go ahead and follow through. We have a really big one in North Raleigh that I think even has a facility. Mm-hmm. So,
So are there any chefs other than Molly Katzen, vegan or non-vegan, or that have kind of inspired you or influenced you in the way you eat and the way you cook?
I'd have to say kind of everybody who came before me. Because I really like to look at Robin Robinson. Obviously, is really awesome.
I'll have to interview her, because I pretty much have every book she's ever written.
Well, I've met her, and she's really a nice person. One thing that I used to love, and actually I just pulled this out. I haven't used this book in a long time, but it's Uprisings, the whole grain baker's book, and it's a collection of recipes, I think, from all the co-ops like in the 70s or 80s.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that book meant a lot to me, because between that and the Enchanted Broccoli Forest is how I learned how to make bread. And there was a brief window where I sold some bread as well. Grad school was tough.
So was grad school before you became playing in the orchestra, or after? When did you have really done a lot?
It was before. So I went to grad school for music performance in St. Louis. And so I was the poor grad student.
Yeah. So in other words, so you put down the French horn, you picked up the slow cooker, kind of.
Kind of, yeah.
Oh, that's terrific. Do you get to travel at all, though, just for pleasure? Like, I'm going on the vegan cruise this weekend. Do you ever do things like that, or you ever get out to California?
I'm totally jealous of you, actually, for going.
Well,
I've not ever been on a cruise, and we keep talking about the possibility of doing that.
wow. Well, you should apply to speak on it, and then, you kind of have like a little bit of a working vacation.
That sounds good. I should talk to you after you come back, and then maybe you can hook me up with some people to talk to.
Definitely tell you who to approach. Any of the other people in the plant-based movement that you admire, like Dr. Campbell or any of those that maybe have influenced your eating or things like that?
It's so hard to narrow down because I'm so terrified I'm going to leave other people out. But yes, like Dr. Ashland and Dr. Bernard, the Engine 2 people, and even just some of my contemporaries like Vegan Rika, who has a wonderful blog, an Unrefined Vegan. There's just, Rikki Heller and her work with Candida. There's just so much out there right now, and it's just so awesome that all you have to do is just put your search into Google, and you're going to come up with somebody's wonderful recipe and ideas.
And that's how I really came up with yours, because I really literally had a half a cup of steel cut oats laying around. I'm like, what the heck am I going to do with this? And that's how I found your recipe and you. And it's just so nice that you're so kind and supportive of your colleagues, because you don't always see a lot of that. And so that's I commend you for that. So we only have a couple of minutes left. If there's anything you want to mention, otherwise I'll just ask you to tell me about my other favorite thing, which are pets. Like, who are they? Because I love pets.
Well, I think that's probably where we should go. So I have my elder dog. She's about 9, and she's some sort of lab mix, and she's like a reverse brindle, and she's hilarious. So when she was young, she would just go up in the air, and her ears would be flying like the Flying Nun, and she's goofy.
That dates us, because not everybody listening will have known that show, but I did that show when I was younger.
Basically, or maybe like Flags. How about that? And I don't think you can hear it in the background, but I can hear the squeaky downstairs. Cheryl's downstairs with the dogs. And so Max is our newest dog, and he's about 3.5 now, and he's a pit hound mix.
Wow. So I imagine these are rescues, because they're mixed. So that's another great thing about you, that you're rescuing instead of breeding or buying.
Absolutely. It would break my heart. And actually, Max, I was going to go through a foster. I was going to be responsible.
Yeah.
And we went to an animal shelter with a friend for a friend reason, and then that's why Max is here. So I'm not allowed to go into the shelters anymore.
Yeah, I know. It's like me going into the spice shop,
Oh. Let's see. I have a whole drawer, like a double drawer full of spices, and then I have 2 different bins in the pantry.
Well, the thing about spices, if you get sick of them, you can throw them out. You can't do that with pets,
Oh, no. And then I have 2 cats. One is my elder cat. She's like 18.
Wow, that's fantastic.
She's having some kidney issues, but she's hanging in there, and she's mean enough to smack the crap out of my other cat.
Oh, boy. Cats
Which she should. The other cat is always trying to torment her. So as long as she can, fight back, I feel okay.
Well, it's just been just delightful. I just feel like I've gotten to know you, and now I want to know you even more, and I want to buy the other 2 books of yours that I don't have, because you just are so gracious and so giving of your time and your recipes. Your blog is wonderful. If you haven't checked it out, it's www.healthyslowcooking.com. Amazing recipes. So if you're uncertain about buying Oatrageous Oatmeals, you can try some of the recipes, but I'm telling you, you will love this book. The Great Vegan Bean Book, another great book, one that I don't have yet, and one that I'm going to have to buy that's coming out in September. So I've been talking to Kathy Hester, author of these wonderful best-selling vegan, easy to make with easy to find ingredients, lots of DIYs. Kathy, thank you so much for letting me keep you up past your bedtime and being so gracious and easy to talk to. And I so appreciate the work you're doing and your flexibility within your recipes to accommodate people like me that are soy, gluten, and oil and nut free. I really, really appreciate that you have something for everybody, and your recipes are delicious.
It's been my pleasure, and I'm so glad that we finally got to talk.
Yeah, and hopefully I'll meet you. I'm going to, maybe I'll check out North Carolina, and I can see you and Howard. We can all get together. It'd be really a lot of fun.
Oh, that would be great. We could go to Fiction Kitchen is the restaurant you want to go to in Raleigh for fabulous vegan and vegetarian food.
I love that name. I'd go just for the name. So thank you so much, Kathy, and thank you all so much for listening to Healthy Living with Chef AJ. I'm Chef AJ, and I make healthy taste delicious. Good night, everyone.